Third Wednesday with Pastor Ron. I'm Pastor Ron Bupp, coming to you from Heritage United Methodist Church in Waverly, Iowa. As you can see this morning, I'm not in my office doing this. I'm actually in the church sanctuary. I'm doing this from the sanctuary because it is our hope that we'll be able to start live streaming our worship services for you coming this Sunday. So let's hope that everything works out just fine. The other great thing that's going on this morning is I'm coming to you at 10 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, just as I promised that I was trying to accomplish. And so this is the first week that we're actually doing that, and my intention is to each week on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. to come to you live within the Word. Last week, of course, if you've been following us, you know that we had no broadcast. That's because I was gone to Wisconsin with our youth group. 9 wonderful teenagers. We had a great time up there. It was a little chilly, unseasonably chilly, but that didn't slow down the kids. While we were up there, each evening I had an hour of uninterrupted time called Pastor's Times with the kids. And so each night I worked on the theme called temptation. One night we looked at things that were bad for us or situations that we needed to avoid that might tempt us into doing something wrong. Another night we talked about the temptation that comes by the bad influence of other people, and that we needed to be aware of that. And the final night was we talked about the temptation to just give up on things, to give up on projects, to give up on life. Well, I wanted to share with you one of those gatherings that I had with the youth. In light of Monday's storms here in Iowa, I think that temptation to give up conversation gives us a very important story to consider. The scripture that we used for the youth time, the pastor's time with the kids, was from Nehemiah. And so Nehemiah is a fairly long book, and there's not one particular scripture that can give you the full picture. So I've taken certain parts of the scripture this morning, and through reading of the scripture and some narration, I'm going to tell you Nehemiah's story. The story of Nehemiah begins with the fall of Israel, the fall of Jerusalem. You see, about 600 years before Jesus was born, the people of Israel, the people of Jerusalem, had pretty much turned their back on God. And despite the efforts of the prophets, they just would not come back to God the way that he wanted them to. And so he chose to punish them. He sent King Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian army from the north to come down to rout both the northern and the southern kingdom and destroy Jerusalem, and sent the Jews into exile, taking many of them back to Babylon. Well, the exile lasted about 70 years, and then God relented, forgave the people, and sent the Persian king and his army to overthrow the Babylonians. And the Persian kings were sympathetic to the Jews and allowed them to return to Jerusalem to begin rebuilding the city. Nehemiah was one of the first Jews sent back, and he actually worked for the king of Persia. So take a listen. This is Nehemiah's story. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought to him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before. So the king asked me, "Why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" The king said to me, "What is it that you want?" If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried, so that I can rebuild it." So King Artaxerxes, the king of Persia at the time, financed the expedition to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. The scripture continues. When Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry and was greatly incensed. Now Sanballat was a local official in Samaria, a Samaritan who hated the Jews and who had benefited from the fall of Jerusalem. He ridiculed the Jews, and in the presence of his associates and the army of Samaria, he said, "What are those feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they finish in a day? Can they bring the stones back to life from those heaps of rubble?" Tobiah, the Ammonite, who was at his side, said, "What they're building, even a fox climbing up on the wall would break down those walls of stone." But Nehemiah goes on and he says, "We rebuilt the wall till all of it reached half its height. For the people worked with all their heart. But the people in Judah said, 'The strength of the laborers is giving out, and there is so much rubble that we cannot rebuild the wall.' Also, our enemies said, 'Before they know it or see us, we will put an end to that work.' So we continued the work, with half the men holding spears, from the first light of dawn till the stars came out. At that time I also said to the people, 'Have every man and his helper stay inside Jerusalem at night, so they can serve as guards by night and as workers by day.' Neither I nor my brothers nor my men nor the guards with me took off our clothes. Each had his weapon, even when they went for water." Well, then the people began to get discouraged from the hard work. So Nehemiah prayed to God. "Now strengthen my hands," he prayed. So the wall was completed in 52 days. The object lesson, the game we played with the youth on the night that we discussed this on the trip. Each team, there were 3 teams of 3 youth each, were given 100 assorted cookies, and they were given 15 minutes to build a castle out of these cookies. Now you would think that they would be very creative, and they were. And some of the castles were absolutely magnificent. But what they didn't know when they started building is the 3 ladies who were chaperones were given instructions to go in and to be nasty to them, to grab cookies off the bottom to make the structure tumble, to discourage them by criticizing them. So that the lesson was, in the midst of difficulty, in the midst of adversity, they might be tempted to give up. They might be tempted not to stay the course of what their mission was. Cedar Rapids and Marion are facing big challenges here by us. And those folks are going to get discouraged. So they need our encouragement. Supporting mission and doing mission are 2 different things. They are required, both sides, but they are different things. You see, supporting mission means what King Artaxerxes did, providing financial support for Nehemiah and the workers. Doing the mission is actually rolling up your sleeves, grabbing your toolbox, your chainsaw, your generator, jumping in your truck, and heading into the work zone. The players, the actors in the story of Nehemiah provided support and the doing of the mission. Nehemiah was the mission leader. He was the spiritual guide. The Jews who went with him back to Jerusalem were the workers. They took their tools, their chainsaws, their gloves. And the king and the people around the areas provided financial support. And of course, as there always is in these big projects, there were the detractors, the naysayers, the ones who criticize and bring the workers down. For us who are not there in those towns that were devastated by the storms, we must look in the mirror and say, there, but for the grace of God, go I. There, but for the grace of God, go I. What if that happened here in Waverly? What if that happened in your town? You see, we must get behind the mission of our brothers and sisters in this disaster. Some of us are going to be workers. They have chainsaws and generators, and they rolled up their sleeves and they've gone to help. But not everybody can do that. But we all can be supporters financially. Now, I know it's hard to make a dent in the millions of dollars that are going to be needed in this disaster. But what we can do is pick a project out of the big project, the big mission. There's a church in Marion. Its name is Christ Community Church. It's a United Methodist church, and it was devastated by the storm. This church is near and dear to my heart because it's the church that sent me into ministry, into pastoral ministry so many years ago. It was structurally devastated. Part of the roof is off. The sanctuary is destroyed. The education wing was blown off of its foundation. And 5 big oak trees on their property have come down, and a line of big old pine trees has been blown over. On Sunday, Heritage United Methodist Church will be taking a special offering for Christ Community Church. But if you're here and you're coming to church, please come prepared to give generously to this worthy cause, to support this mission, the mission of rebuilding. If you're not here, I'd like to invite you and encourage you to send in your donation to us for this project. Send it to P.O. Box 234, Waverly, Iowa, 50677. Heritage United Methodist Church, Post Office Box 234, Waverly, Iowa, 50677. You see, God supported the rebuilding of his city. Let us support the rebuilding of one of his churches. Well, I'm Pastor Ron Bopp here at Heritage United Methodist Church, saying God bless you and keep you and your family safe and healthy. Goodbye for now.